Violence leaves more than 200 Palestinians injured as a day of rage is declared in the region. Tension spilled over after Donald Trump's controversial decision to recognise Jerusalem as the Israeli capital. A major breakthrough is reached in the Brexit talks as both sides agree to move to the next stage, though senior officials warn things will only get tougher. And there are doubts whether the USA will compete at the upcoming Winter Olympics in South Korea, with American authorities giving out mixed messages, though people on the streets of New York seem more certain about who won't be taking part.
Russia!
Russia.
See the United States.
Wow.
It's terrible.
This is RT International coming to you live from Moscow. I'm Kate Partridge. Thank you for joining us. More than 200 Palestinians have been injured after protests turned violent across the West Bank and Gaza. That's according to the Palestine Red Crescent Society. Tear gas, rubber bullets and even live ammunition were used by Israeli police as they clashed with demonstrators. The tensions escalated after US President Donald Trump's decision to recognise Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Well, protests are now underway across Palestine. Israeli police are using tear gas and water cannon against the demonstrators. In Jerusalem, people are gathering near the Damascus Gate, where several clashes with security forces have already been seen. Charlotte Dubensky is there.
Bottles were hurled at the security services and at the journalists who were trying to get out of the way, and then the police in turn were pushing those protesters away and running after them, some on the back of horses as well, trying to steer them away from Damascus Gate. But this is just an indication, a small indication of some of the scuffles that we're seeing across the Israeli and Palestinian territories today and over the last few days. And we've been talking to Israeli citizens and Palestinian citizens. This is what they had to say.
There will not be bad consequences and ramifications that will lead for another intifada or another revolution.
It's going to be intifada, I think so, you know, but it's this time it's not going to be short one, you know. I hope things turn out right, but it doesn't look right, you know.
Palestinians are going to look for any excuse they can to call for a day of rage, and they're not going to stop us.
It's a significant move. I think it's going to cause trouble. Why Jerusalem needs to be the capital of Israel, I don't know. It's here, it's in Palestine. It should remain in Palestine.
There's a sound of car horns in the air, and that's sort of people showing support for the small number of demonstrators who are here. They've been chanting things like, "This is our capital." These are Palestinian demonstrators who are unhappy with that announcement by Donald Trump. But this is not just a small-scale scuffle. This has already become something a little bit wider, with the IDF actually launching 2 strikes on Gaza in the last few days. They say that that was in retaliation for a rocket strike which they blame on Hamas in Gaza. However, that has since been claimed by another group, and there is fear that this could lead to even bigger tensions. You heard one of the people I spoke to there saying this could be a third intifada, and that is actually what the leader of the Islamist group Hamas in Gaza, Ismail Haniyeh, has called for in the last few days, describing this alliance between the US and Israel as being satanic. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has described this as being a great decision and has thanked Donald Trump for recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Well, meanwhile, the US is boosting security in the region and has issued a travel alert for Americans. It comes after Friday was declared a day of rage, with Hamas calling for a new intifada, an armed rebellion against Israel. While other pro-Palestinian groups are also vowing that Trump will pay dearly for his decision. I24 News correspondent Mohammed Al-Qasim has the latest from Bethlehem.
In Bethlehem, there is a large deployment of Israeli forces on the ground and also demonstrations. Palestinians have been demonstrating President Donald Trump's decision to declare Jerusalem capital of Israel. They've taken to the streets, and we have seen hundreds of them just here in this one location in the northern part of the city of Bethlehem in the West Bank. Tear gas has been used, rubber bullets by the Israeli forces. In return, the Palestinians are using Molotov bombs, cocktail bombs, as well as stone throwing. It has been on and off throughout the day, but it's extremely dangerous here. We've seen also reports of clashes on the borders between Gaza and Israel, just to the south of us. A senior Palestinian official, Jibril al-Rujub, said that the Palestinian president, the Palestinian officials will not be meeting with Vice President Mike Pence when he arrives here later this month in the region. He will be visiting Israel and was supposedly scheduled to meet with President Mahmoud Abbas in the city of Bethlehem, where we are. He said that he is not welcomed in Palestine.
Well, the international response against America's unilateral recognition of Jerusalem is gathering steam. Some world leaders have condemned Trump's decision. The UN Security Council will hold a special meeting on this issue today. One of the initiators of the meeting was Bolivia, and we spoke to the country's UN envoy.
The U.S. decision to acknowledge Jerusalem as the capital of Israel is a threat to international order and safety. The global protest against Trump's decision proves that. The Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas said such a step damaged the U.S. image as a mediator in the peace process. We hope that the situation will be resolved peacefully and that the international community will exercise its influence to help Palestine become an independent state.
Well, to discuss this further, let's now cross live to Nabil Shah, who's a foreign affairs advisor to the Palestinian president. Mr. Shah, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, let's look at the situation now. I mean, the Palestinians say they'll refuse to negotiate with the Americans. I mean, do you think that this effectively scuppers the peace process?
Well, what President Trump has done literally destroyed at least his peace process, the peace process that America chaperones. It has not really been a success from the very beginning, maybe only in the first 2-3 years after 1994. But since then, the peace process that is managed by the United States has failed. And now with Mr. Trump siding completely with the Israeli side, destroying every piece of trust that he can be an honest broker. He's neither honest nor a broker. It makes it very impossible to continue a peace process that is managed by the Americans. The only peace process that really can have any potential for success is an international peace process. A peace process that is chaperoned by Russia, China and Europe, and maybe in the United Nations. But with Mr. Trump and his group, it is now impossible. They're out of any potential for a peace process.
Well, with the UN set to discuss this later, in the meantime then, looking ahead to possible solutions, do you think that a two-state solution would still be a possibility?
Well, the possibilities really now seem blocked by what Mr. Trump has done. Jerusalem is a very, very sensitive issue to the Palestinians, to the Arabs, to the Muslims and to the Christians of the world. And what he has done created serious situation, not only of mistrust, but of instability and potential for explosion in this part of the world. If there is an international process, we need to see it. Our president have been talking to President Putin and to President Xi of China and to the Ms. Mogherini and the European Union, but there is no yet a crystallized approach to a peace process after the stopping of the French process that brought together 74 countries to attend the conference in Paris, and then with the end of the period of the French president, we're still awaiting putting something together that is really brings the parties to a real peace process.
Well, moving aside from the peace process, I mean, in the meantime, Hamas has called for a new intifada against Israel. I mean, how do the Palestinian officials react to that?
Well, the word intifada really means a popular uprising, and a popular uprising can take varieties of ways. The first intifada in 1987 was really called the Stone Intifada, because the only weapon used was stones that the children threw at the Israeli tanks and armored cars. An intifada is an expression of a people's rejection of occupation and resistance to hegemony. And therefore, in that sense, what is going on today is an intifada. What went on 3 months ago in Jerusalem was an intifada, but it was entirely peaceful. And that's what our authority really aims at. And a popular uprising that is non-violent is the best way of expressing the feelings and the rejection of the Palestinian people, of the Trump and the Israeli occupation.
And also on the back of the decision as well by President Trump, the US Vice President Mike Pence, I mean, he's no longer going to be welcomed in Palestine when he visits Israel later this month. I mean, is that a wise move?
Would you repeat that, please?
Yeah. The US Vice President Mike Pence, I mean, it's now said he will no longer be welcome in Palestine when he visits Israel later this month. I mean, is it a wise move anyway?
If you really are talking about the visit of Mr. Pence and as a possible way of continuing the peace process?
Yes.
You know, if that is really what you meant, no, Mr. Pence is not welcome at this time, and anything that will come out of Mr. Trump is not really welcome at this time, unless he totally reverses his position in Jerusalem.
And on that note, we'll leave it. Nabil Shah, former Foreign Affairs Advisor to the Palestinian President, thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you.